Yeah, obviously excited to be back here and getting ready to play. I heard the tail end of our guys' responses, and I'm sure you guys got a lot of questions for me, so I'll look forward to answering them. But again, thankful to be in this spot, and we know how good, I'm sure you asked me, Gardner-Webb is, and we're trying to prepare as well as we can and look forward to playing tomorrow.
First question here, second row in the middle.
Tony, you don't always get a chance to see your incoming recruits play together before they get to college. Were you confident that Ty and Kyle would complement each other as well on the court as they have?
Yeah, they're smart, skilled players, and they got to play in the NBA Top 100 camp. I think they might have been on the same team, or they played in that. And just watching them at AAU, guys that have feel for the game and are skilled and smart, usually gel or mesh together, and they've done that. And I think they've come in and they've added to their physical. Coach Curtis has done a great job. They've gotten stronger and more athletic. But again, the way they play the ball and the way they are was, can we get them ready defensively? And they've even taken steps in that area. So no question, they have that.
Midway back on the right-hand side.
Carboni from NBC Charlotte. Some of your players describe Gardner-Webb's style as relentless and balanced. What jumps out to you?
Yeah, I'm impressed. Well coached. Tim does a great job. But teams that have 4s and 5s that can, all the players that can shoot the three, multiple actions, great spacing of the floor, very good numbers offensively and defensively. They're good. They beat 2 ACC opponents on the road, and one of the ACC assistants just called me and said, they're very good. You got to be ready because they can play. And, of course, we're going to be ready. We understand that. When you get into this tournament, everybody can play. So I think just their balance, their ability to stretch the floor, the actions that they run, and then, again, it's, what DJ did in the championship game was amazing, but they have multiple players to attack and score and play that way.
Back right corner.
Tony, hi. David de Guzman, WFXR in Roanoke. I wanted to ask you about Richie McKay, your former assistant, obviously Liberty, in the tournament for the first time since 2013. What stood out to you about your time with him as an assistant, and how impressed are you with how he's been able to turn around the program to get to the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, well, he did a great job when he was there the first time, and Richie was such a blessing for me to come in. He was a friend from way back, head coaching experience, and had I think he had been in the Virginia area for I don't know how many years exactly when I took the job, but excellent recruiter, understands the game, high level offensively, great mind, and just who he is. You have to, when you go through these rebuilding programs or the rigors of just seasons, you want people that you always say are with you irregardless, and you trust them, and that was built in because of our relationship before, because of who he is. And then hopefully he helped our program. Hopefully he gained some things, but he's taken that job, and he's got very good players. They play a sound system. They're defending well. He's got them doing good stuff offensively. So I'm really happy to see the success that he had, and Coach Soucy's there, who was with us as well.
Middle, Coach.
Coach Wayne Epps with the Richmond Times-Dispatch. Over the course of the season, how do you make sure the guys are sort of mentally where they need to be at this point of the year? Can it feel, the regular season kind of feel long at times? And if so, how do you make sure that this time of the year they're kind of at their best going into tournament play? Yeah,
you're always trying to, the teams that can advance are the teams that are healthy, that are playing their best basketball and are fresh. The season is challenging, it's long, so you always look at the season and say, how can we try to peak at the right time, play our best basketball? When you're in a league like the ACC, we always use the term, it'll check you for leaks. If you got any leaks, it'll show up. So you just have to be ready every time out. And, you're hopeful at that competition, if there's something that's off, it'll show, and then you address it to work at it. And then, again, just prepare the right way. That's all you can do. I told our guys, they're going to get so many questions, I'm sure, about last year. And I said, here's the deal. I said, you respect your opponent, which is easy to do because they're very good. You respect the game. You prepare well, and then get yourself in the moment and go out and play. That's what you can control. And, again, you try to get your team playing the best basketball. But that's the reality of it. So, hopefully we're in a good spot and ready to play.
Coach, back row in the middle.
Will Pelagic, South Carolina Radio Network. Tony, dovetailing off of that, your players talked about channeling last year's disappointment properly. What constitutes during that, and how do you prepare them, just having dealt with that, for this stage now?
Yeah, that's everybody processes things or internalizes things differently. But, in all of your experiences, when you go through a relatively hard thing, those are the things that can really shape you, as we always talk about, if you learn to use them right. So that was something that we've talked about as a team, and certainly have dealt with it, and we've said we've owned that. And I think that's, just use it in the right way. You don't stay in it forever, but you grow from all those things, but especially that, and then attack this year. We talked about running to the starting line. That was kind of a theme we talked about to this year, and playing in the best way. And certainly there's motivation from all the experiences that have happened in the past. But I think it's the ability, as I said, to prepare well and be in the moment now, and be as good as you can, and know you're going to be. It's a new year, and it's kind of that idea of pressing on.
Coach, front row.
Paul Woody, Richmond Times-Dispatch. Coach Bennett. The players were talking about a TED Talk that they watched. Was that your idea? And do you remember who gave the talk and what the point of the whole exercise was?
Yeah, it was. If you've ever watched TED Talks, they're very. I think they're inspirational. This was one just actually it was done in Charlottesville. A guy named it's called Joe the Storyteller, and it was just he had gone through or had witnessed something, a hard thing. This was at the start of the year we showed it, and it was powerful. It was a unique, I thought, TED Talk that really spoke to the situation at hand, and it's really just, there's so many things guys take from it, but the ability to learn to use things that happen in your life in the right way, because there's just a quote, and I think I shared it at ACC Media Day, that if you learn to use it right, it can buy you a ticket to a place that you couldn't have gone any other way. Talking about a hard experience, and that was kind of the idea about that. And that's the reality of the talk and the guys, and we've used that and shared that and say, in anything, what can we learn from this? Are we thankful for what we learned, whether it's a tough loss, a great win, or a situation like last year? The ability to grow from that and respond in the right way.
Coach, third row in the middle.
Coach, Wes McElroy, Sports Radio 910,
Wes.
The Fan Richmond. You can show guys and you can talk to them about certain things, but what most impressed you, the message that you gave them last year after that loss, and the things that you told them in the offseason, what's most caught your attention, impressed you during the regular season about the growth and maturity of this team? Yeah,
you just, as I said, the league is good. You got to step in the moment and play. And I thought the guys' consistency, that a conference season or a season is about the consistency of your team on the road, at home, over 2.5 months, or 18 games in the ACC, and that's a challenge. Now that's a different kind of challenge than the NCAA tournament. The NCAA tournament or ACC is the one and done. But I marveled at how they found ways, they rallied, and they were at a very consistent level for the most part, and that doesn't always happen when you're in a league, any league really, because usually there's some drop-offs or dips, and certainly that's possible. But how they did that, what was our record in conference? We were 16-2, right? Yes, okay, going back. To be able to do that over that consistent time, that impressed me. And they really, played together. I think their versatility was important, but and they all improved in the offseason. So I think that always stands out to me, that over that course of time, I think that's kind of what you're asking, where I step back and say, hard to do, and they did it, and well done.
In the back right.
Hey, Tony. Allison Williams,
Hey, Allison.
ESPN. Curious if you could just speak to the impact of having DeAndre this year in the tournament, his versatility and what he brings, and the difference it will be having him.
Yeah, DeAndre's had a heck of a year. He's improved. You said it, his versatility. Defensively, we've used him at times to guard 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. and that can be helpful. You know, you have to, the way the game is going with, you know, 4s and 5s now that are playing just like guards and separating, you need mobility and quickness to be able to hopefully guard guys like that well. And then, you know, offensively we've used DeAndre on some on the perimeter and some as kind of a stretch 4, and he's been able at times to certainly manufacture some shots, shot-making ability. Those things I think are really important, and you have to account for him on the offensive end. And, you know, he can score in the post some. He's just versatile really in both ways. So, and, you know, at 6'7" or 6'8" with the long wingspan, just his dimensions are good. So just a high-quality player, obviously, and I think that anytime you can have a versatile player that can play some 4, or 3, that makes it. I think that is what was helped us last year and has helped us again this year, among other things.
Coach, second row on the right.
Ron Couch from Daily Progress. Coach, Jack talked about last year as a guy who can score on the outside and on the inside. Whether it's Jack defending him or someone else, what's the key to defending a versatile big like that?
Say that. What was the first part?
Jack mentioned Lassiter as a guy who can score on
Lassiter,
the perimeter.
sorry.
Yeah,
I said last year. Okay, Lassiter.
He can
Yes.
score on the perimeter and the paint. What's the key to defending a versatile big like that?
You have to be really good individually on him, and then collectively as a team. It can't be one man just stopping him, because what he did in the tournament and all, he's playing his best basketball now. But it's not just him. You say, okay, well, we can just lock into him. They have so many other quality players that can score and they're efficient. But you have to. They do a lot of good stuff with ball screens. You got to be able to stop the ball and quick to him as a shooter, and then be able to spread out. And because he drives well, and again, inside, outside. I think he's shooting in over 40 from 3. Their team's shooting almost 40%. So it puts pressure and a challenge on you, but very alert and very ready and quick to him because of his ability to play outside and inside as their 5 a lot of times.
Coach, back right corner.
Hey, Tony. Dan Wolkin, USA Today. I've seen you after some tough losses. You seem to have this incredible calm about you in the toughest moments probably of your career. Is that a conscious choice for you to act that way, to comport yourself that way, or is that just something that comes naturally to you? And when you're ever in private, do you ever go somewhere and scream or something like that?
Punch the pillow. I used to do that when I played for my dad. When he'd yell at me, I'd like go to the dorm and we'd say, "All right, this is a pillow," and we'd say, pretend as he's chewed us out. So of course you do. I'm thankful for the things that you certainly feel. Things bother you, but where does peace and perspective come from? And I always tell our guys, it's got to be something that is unconditional. And I know I have that in the love of my family. Unconditional acceptance and love, that's huge. And I know I have that in my faith in Christ. That's, for me, where I draw my strength from, my peace, my steadiness in the midst of things. But of course you feel things. Of course you desperately want things to go well, and it's frustrating when you're not, and you step back and look at it. But I think I always challenge our guys, what's your secret of contentment? What's your secret of contentment? Because there's going to be times it talks about you're going to be well-fed and living in plenty, and there's going to be times where you're going to be starving and living in want. What's your secret of handling that? And that I know, without a doubt, those of us who have parents or kids that love you, give them unconditionally, or if your faith is there, that has to buoy you, and that has to be your center. And you dwell on what is good, because there is a bigger picture to all this, and I believe I understand that. So, going through those refining moments, they're tough, but you look back at them in a way, they're sometimes painful gifts that draw you nearer to what truly matters. And I think that would be the best way I could respond to that.